My name's Tom, and I've got something to share that still feels raw, even now. It all started one quiet Saturday in our little house in Portland. My wife, Sarah, was off at a friend's baby shower down in Salem, an event I was supposed to tag along for, but honestly, after a brutal week at the office, I just couldn't muster the energy. I needed a breather, a moment to myself to decompress. So I waved her off with a smile and promised to hold down the fort. That afternoon, I was sprawled out on our bed, laptop balanced on my knees, sifting through a backlog of emails. I needed to jot down a quick note, but my pen was a dud, completely out of ink. I could have trudged over to the desk in the corner, but that felt like too much effort for a lazy Saturday. Instead, I started poking around for a spare. My nightstand drawer was a bust, just a mess of old receipts, a broken watch, and some loose change. Then, I thought of Sarah's side of the bed. Her drawer was always tidy, like she had some secret organizational superpower. I didn't usually mess with her stuff, but desperation for a working pen pushed me to slide it open. I rummaged through her neatly arranged items, some notepads, a few hair ties, a small bottle of perfume. Then, tucked beneath a stack of folded letters, I found something that made my stomach lurch. A box of condoms. It's half hidden like it was meant to stay that way. My mind froze. Sarah and I hadn't used condoms in our 10 years of marriage. It was an unspoken agreement. No discussion needed. We were solid, or so I thought. I pried open the box, my hands trembling slightly. One was missing just one butt. That was enough to send my thoughts spiraling. Why would she have these? We hadn't been intimate in months, not because of any big fight, but life had just gotten in the way. Work stress, long hours, and a quiet distance that had crept up on us. I sat there, staring at the box, my heart pounding. Was she cheating? The idea hit me like a freight train. I didn't want to believe it, but what else could explain this? I tried to think of other reasons. Maybe a friend left them here. Maybe it was a mistake, but none of it added up. The box was too deliberately hidden, too out of place in our life. I sat on the edge of the bed, the weight of that little box heavier than anything I'd ever held. My first instinct was to call her, to demand answers, but I stopped myself. I'd made that mistake once before, years ago, when I thought she was too close with a coworker. I'd been wrong then, and the fallout had taught me to tread carefully. If I was going to confront her, I needed proof. Not just a hunch fueled by a single missing condom, but the doubt was eating me alive. I couldn't just sit there and pretend everything was fine. So, I made a plan. I snapped a quick photo of the box, making sure to capture its place in the drawer, then slid it back exactly as I'd found it. Sarah couldn't know I was onto her. Not yet. The next morning, I drove to an electronics store across town and picked up a few small, discreet cameras and a GPS tracker for her car. If something was going on, I'd find out. I wasn't about to let my imagination run wild without evidence. Back home, I kinda got to work. Carefully placing the cameras in spots Sarah wouldn't notice. Above the bookshelf in the living room, tucked in too. A corner of the kitchen, one in our bedroom behind a framed photo. The GPS tracker went under her car's passenger seat, hidden but active. When Sarah came home that evening, I played it cool. She walked in, her usual bright self, chatting about the baby shower, the games, the endless small talk. I nodded along, forcing a smile, but my eyes were studying her every move. Was there a hint of guilt in her laugh? A flicker of something off in her eyes? She seemed so normal, so Sarah, that for a moment, I wondered if I was losing it. Maybe? I was paranoid, seeing shadows where there were none. But that box in her drawer wasn't a figment of my imagination. It was real, and it demanded answers. We sat down to dinner, kept up the act, asking about her day, laughing at the right moments. Inside, though, my mind was racing. Every word she said, every gesture I was analyzing. looking for cracks in the facade. She didn't give me anything to work with. No nervous glances, no hesitant pauses. If she was hiding something, she was good at it. That night, as we climbed into bed, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. If Sarah was cheating, I'd know soon enough. The cameras were rolling, the tracker was live, and I was ready to uncover the truth. Whatever it was, the days after I set up the cameras and GPS tracker felt like wading through quicksand. Every morning, I woke up with a knot in my stomach, knowing I was playing detective in my own marriage. Sarah went about her routine, oblivious to the eyes I'd hidden around our Portland home. I'd kiss her goodbye as she left for her marketing job downtown, then rush to my laptop to check the footage and track her data. It was obsessive, I know, but that box of condoms in her drawer had cracked something in me. I couldn't just let it go. For the first week, nothing stood out. The GPS showed Sarah's car moving between predictable places: her office, the grocery store on Hawthorne, her yoga class near the river. The camera footage was just as mundane. Sarah making coffee in the kitchen, reading a novel on the couch, or folding laundry in our bedroom. It was so normal it almost felt cruel, like the universe was taunting me. I'd sit there, scrolling through hours of footage, waiting for something, anything, to confirm or dispel the gnawing suspicion in my gut. But it was just her living her life, same as always. By the second week, the monotony started to mess with my head. Was I wrong? Had I blown this whole thing out of proportion? The condoms were still there in my mind, a glaring red flag, but the lack of evidence was making me question myself. I'd been through a rough patch at work, layoffs looming, endless deadlines, and maybe my stress was clouding my judgment. I tried to focus on the day-to-day, to act normal around Sarah, but it was like walking on eggshells. Every time she smiled at me or reached for my hand, I'd wonder if it was genuine or a cover for something else. One evening, about 10 days in, we were eating takeout from a food cart on Division Street. Sarah was telling me about a new client at work, her eyes lighting up as she described their quirky ad campaign. I nodded, but my mind was elsewhere, replaying the image of that partially open condom box. "You okay, Tom?" she asked, her fork pausing midair. I snapped back, forcing a grin. "Yeah, just tired. Long week." She bought it, or at least she didn't press further. But her question lingered, making me wonder if she sensed something was off with me. I kept checking the cameras and tracker religiously, but by the end of the third week, I was starting to lose steam. The footage was a loop of Sarah's routine: work, errands, home. No late-night drives, no secret meets, no strangers slipping into our house. I even started to feel a little guilty, like I was betraying her by spying. What if I'd misread the whole thing? Maybe the condoms were old, from before we got married, forgotten in her drawer. It sounded flimsy even to me, but I wanted to believe it and wanted to believe her. Then, one rainy afternoon, something shifted. I was working from home, half-heartedly reviewing a spreadsheet, when I decided to check the GPS tracker on a whim. Sarah had said she was grabbing coffee with a coworker after work, but the tracker showed her car parked at a small hotel on the edge of town, far from the trendy cafes she usually went to. My heart started racing. I pulled up the camera footage from the past few days, fast-forwarding through the usual scenes of Sarah. Cooking or scrolling on her phone, nothing. But the tracker data didn't lie. Her car had been at that hotel for over an hour. I sat there, staring at the blinking dot on my laptop screen, my mind spinning. Why a hotel? Was she meeting someone? I wanted to drive there, barge in, and see for myself, but I forced myself to stay calm. If I confronted her now, I'd have nothing but a location and a hunch. I needed more. I needed to see it with my own eyes. So I waited, checking the tracker obsessively. By the time Sarah got home that evening, the car had moved back to her office, then home. She walked in, shaking rain off her umbrella, and gave me a quick kiss on the cheek. "Coffee was great," she said casually. "You should come next time." I nodded, my throat tight, unable to meet her eyes. That night, I barely slept, replaying every moment of our marriage, looking for clues I'd missed. The distance between us. The late nights she'd blamed on work. The way she'd been so careful with her phone lately. All started to feel like pieces of a puzzle. I didn't want to solve, but I couldn't stop now. I doubled down, checking the cameras and tracker every chance I got. Waiting for her to slip up again. The hotel incident lit a fire under me. That blinking dot on the GPS tracker, parked at a nondescript hotel on the outskirts of Portland, was like a splinter in my mind. I couldn't shake it. Sarah's casual coffee with a coworker excuse didn't add up. And the more I thought about it, the more I felt like I was teetering on the edge of something I wasn't ready to face. But I couldn't stop now. It's come too far and invested too much. Cameras, a tracker, hours of my life spent watching her every move. I needed answers. For the next week, I was hypervigilant. Every morning, I checked the GPS data before Sarah even left for work. I'd scour the camera footage late at night, long after she'd gone to bed, looking for anything, a glance, a gesture, a moment that might betray her. But the footage remained stubbornly normal. Sarah cooking pasta in the kitchen, watering the plants on our balcony, humming to herself as she folded clothes. It was maddening. The GPS showed her sticking to her usual routine. Office yoga, the occasional stop at a bookstore or the market. No more hotel visits, no late-night detours. It was like that one blip had been a fluke, a glitch in the system, or maybe a warning. I wasn't supposed to ignore. I started to doubt myself again. Was I losing it? Or was I so desperate to find something wrong that I was inventing conspiracies? The condoms in her drawer were still there, untouched since I'd found them, but I hadn't dared check the box again. Part of me was afraid of what I'd find. Another missing one. Or worse, nothing changed, leaving me with no excuse for my paranoia. I tried to act normal around Sarah, but it was getting harder. Every time she laughed or touched my arm, I'd wonder if it was a performance. Every time she left the house, I'd feel my chest tighten, wondering where she was really going. One evening, about 2 weeks after the hotel incident, Sarah came home later than usual. She'd texted me earlier, saying she was grabbing drinks with her team to celebrate a big project win. I nodded at my phone, but my mind was already racing. The GPS confirmed she'd been at a bar downtown, not far from her office, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. When she walked in, her cheeks were flushed, her eyes bright from a couple of glasses of wine. "You should have come, Tom," she said, kicking off her shoes. "It was so fun. You'd love the new guy on our team. He's got the worst dad jokes." I forced a smile, but my stomach churned. "Sounds great," I said, my voice flat. She didn't seem to notice, chattering on about her night as she poured herself a glass of water. I watched her closely, searching for any sin and nervous tick, a too quick glance away, but she was as relaxed as ever. Too relaxed, maybe. I couldn't tell anymore. My judgment was clouded, tangled up in suspicion and hope. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, listening to Sarah's steady breathing beside me, and decided I needed to dig deeper. The next morning, while she was in the shower, I checked her phone. I'd never done that before. It felt like crossing a line I couldn't uncross, but desperation was winning out. Her password was the same as always, a small relief. I scrolled through her texts, emails, even her calendar, but there was nothing obvious. A few messages with coworkers about the project, a group chat with her yoga friends, a reminder about a dentist appointment. If she was hiding something, she was careful. But then I found an email buried in her inbox from a name I didn't Recognize J. Carter. The subject was a vague re-meeting, and the message was short. Same time next week, let me know. No context, no details, just a casual tone that felt too familiar for a stranger. My pulse quickened. I checked the sender's address, but it was a generic Gmail account. No company signature or clues. I took a screenshot with my phone and put hers back before she got out of the shower. For the next few days, I fixated on that email. Who was J. Carter? A coworker? A friend? Something more? I cross-checked the GPS data, trying to match her movements to the date of the email, but nothing lined up with another hotel visit. I even drove by the bar she'd been at, scoping it out like some amateur sleuth. But it was just a trendy spot, packed with after-work crowds. No answers there. I was starting to feel like I was chasing my own tail, but I couldn't let it go. Then, one afternoon, I decided to check the condom box again. I don't know what made me do it. Maybe a gut feeling, maybe just exhaustion from the constant doubt. I waited until Sarah was out running errands, then slid open her drawer. My hands were shaking as I lifted the stack of letters and found the box. I opened it, counting the foil packets. My heart sank. Another one was gone. 2 missing now, in a box that had no business being in our home. The room felt like it was closing in. I sat on the bed, the box in my hands, my mind racing. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't old or forgotten. Something was happening, and I was closer than ever to proving it. But what would I find when I dug deeper? Finding that second condom missing was like a punch to the gut. I sat there on our bed in Portland, the open box in my hands, staring at the empty space where another foil packet should have been. The room felt too small, the air too thick. Sarah was still out running errands, and I was alone with my thoughts, each one darker than the last. 2 condoms gone. 2 moments I couldn't explain. The doubt that had been gnawing at me for weeks hardened into something else. Certainty. Something was happening. And I was done second-guessing myself. I put the box back exactly as I found it, careful not to disturb the neat stack of letters hiding it. My hands were steady now, fueled by a mix of anger and resolve. I wasn't going to confront Sarah, yet not without something concrete. The GPS tracker and cameras had given me nothing solid since that hotel visit. But the missing condom was a lead I couldn't ignore. I needed to know who J. Carter was, and I needed to see what Sarah was doing when she thought no one was watching. That evening, when Sarah got home, I played my part better than ever. She was carrying a bag of groceries, chatting about a new recipe she wanted to try for dinner. I nodded, helped her unpack, even laughed at her story about a grumpy cashier at the market. But inside, I was a coiled spring, watching her every move for a crack in the facade. She seemed so normal, so effortlessly Sarah, that it almost made me doubt myself again. Almost the image of that box. The email from J. Carter. The hotel dot on the GPS, they were anchors keeping me grounded in my suspicion. The next day, I dove back into the camera footage with a new focus. I'd been checking it daily, but now I was obsessive, scrubbing through every frame like my life depended on it. I started with the bedroom camera, hidden behind our wedding photo on the dresser. Hours of footage showed nothing but Sarah getting ready for work, reading in bed, or scrolling on her phone. I moved to the living room and kitchen cameras, fast-forwarding. Through days of mundane routines, my eyes burned from staring at the screen, but I couldn't stop. I was looking for something, anything that would connect the dots. Then, on a whim, I checked the footage from 2 days earlier, a Tuesday when I'd been stuck late at the office. I'd almost skipped it, assuming it was another dead end. But something caught my eye. Around 2 p.m., Sarah came home unexpectedly. She wasn't supposed to be there. She'd told me she was swamped with a client deadline. The footage showed her walking into the living room, her phone pressed to her ear, her voice too low for the camera's mic to pick up. She paced for a minute. Then hung up and headed to the bedroom. I switched to the bedroom camera, my heart pounding. Sarah walked in, glanced around like she was making sure she was alone, then opened her nightstand drawer. She pulled out the condom box, slipped a packet into her purse, and left the house. The whole thing took less than 5 minutes. I rewound and watched again, my stomach twisting. She wasn't just hiding the box, she was using it. I checked the GPS data for that day. Her car had gone straight from our house to an address I didn't recognize, a residential street in Northeast Portland. Not her office or the hotel. I felt sick, but I kept going, pulling up more footage from the past week. Another clip from a Friday afternoon showed Sarah leaving the house in a hurry, dressed nicer than her usual. Work outfits. The GPS tracked her to the same Northeast address. I cross-referenced the dates with her texts and that cryptic email from Jay Carter. The timing lined up too perfectly. Whoever Jay Carter was, they were at that address, and Sarah was meeting them. I spent the next few days in a fog, torn between rage and disbelief. I wanted to storm into her office, to demand to know who Jay Carter was, but I needed more. I needed undeniable proof. So I adjusted the bedroom camera for a better angle, hoping to catch something clearer. I also started digging online, searching for Jay Carter in Portland, cross-referencing names with her company's website and social media. I found a James Carter, a freelance graphic designer who'd worked with her team on a recent project. His LinkedIn profile showed a friendly smile, a guy in his 30s with a knack for sleek logos. Was this him? Was this the man Sarah was seeing? I didn't have enough to be sure, but the pieces were falling into place. I kept watching, waiting for the moment that would break this wide open. Every night, I'd lie next to Sarah, her warmth so familiar yet so foreign now, and wonder how long she'd been living this double life. The cameras were my lifeline, the GPS, my map. I was close, so close to the truth. The footage of Sarah taking that condom and heading to an unfamiliar address in Northeast Portland was the final straw. It wasn't just suspicion anymore. It was a truth I could no longer deny. My heart felt like it was being squeezed in a vice, but I forced myself to stay focused. I had the evidence I needed, or at least enough to confront her. The cameras, the GPS, the missing condoms, they all pointed to the same conclusion. Sarah was cheating, and I was done playing detective in my own marriage. I spent the next day preparing, replaying the bedroom footage in my mind. I could still see her, so careful, so deliberate, slipping that foil packet into her purse like it was nothing. The image burned, but it also gave me clarity. I wasn't going to let this drag on any longer. I needed to face her, to see her reaction when the truth came out. But I had to do it right. No accusations without proof. No room for her to wiggle out with excuses. That evening, Sarah came home from work, her usual self. Cheerful, a little tired, carrying a takeout bag from our favorite Thai place on Belmont. "Thought we could have a cozy night in," she said, setting the bag on the counter. I nodded, my face a mask of calm, but my pulse was racing. We ate dinner, her talking about a new campaign at work, me responding just enough to keep up the act. Every bite tasted like ash. All I could think about was the confrontation waiting for us after dinner. As she was clearing the plates, I took a deep breath and said, "Sarah, come here. I need you to see something." My voice was steady, but inside, I was a mess. She looked at me, her brow furrowing slightly, and followed me to the living room where my laptop was open. I'd queued up the bedroom footage of the moment she took the condom. I hit play and watched her face as the clip rolled. Her eyes widened, her hand froze in mid-motion, a glass of water trembling in her grip. The screen showed everything. Her glancing around, pulling the box from the drawer, slipping the packet into her purse. "What is this, Tom?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Why do you have cameras in our bedroom? Ha! I didn't flinch. I found the condoms months ago, Sarah. 2 are missing now. I didn't want to believe it, so I set up the cameras, the GPS tracker, too. I know about the hotel. I know about the address in Northeast Portland. I know about Jay Carter. Her face crumpled, color draining from her cheeks. She set the glass down, her hands shaking. It's not what you think, she started, her voice cracking. It was a mistake, Tom. Just a one-time thing, I swear. I shook my head, cutting her off. Don't. I saw you. I saw you take the condom, Sarah. I tracked you to that house. It's not a mistake. It's a choice. You've been lying to me, and I'm done. She stepped back, tears welling in her eyes. Please, Tom, let me explain. It was just one stupid moment. I was lonely. We've been so distant. Stop, I said, my voice sharper than I intended. I don't need excuses. I've been watching you for months, hoping I was wrong. But I'm not. I know what I saw. She was crying now, her hands covering her face. Please don't do this. I love you. Didn't mean anything to me, but it did mean something. It meant everything. The trust we'd built over 10 years was shattered, and no amount of tears could glue it back together. Pack your things, I told her, my voice cold but steady. You can stay with a friend tonight. If you don't, I'll make sure everyone sees this. Footage, her eyes widened, fear mixing with the tears. You wouldn't, she whispered. I don't want to, I said. But I will. You've got 1 hour. She didn't argue after that. I watched as she moved through the house like a ghost, gathering clothes, her toothbrush, a few books. She didn't look at me, didn't speak. The silence was louder than any fight we'd ever had. When she walked out the door, a duffel bag slung over her shoulder, I felt hollow but resolute. The next morning, I called a lawyer. It wasn't a decision I'd made lightly, but it was the only path forward. Divorce wasn't something I'd ever imagined for us, but sitting in that empty house, I knew it was right. By the end of the week, the papers were drafted. Sarah had moved in with her friend Lisa, who called me a few days later, trying to mediate. She's sorry, Tom, Lisa said. She knows she messed up. She asked me to tell you the whole story, or I replied. My voice flat. She's not the victim here. I didn't elaborate. It wasn't my job to air our dirty laundry. The divorce went through quickly. Sarah didn't fight it. We split our savings, and I kept the house. Our house, now just ... mine.